The key word, today. Guida Gutierrez is a lawyer who flies regularly from her office at the Center for Constitutional Rights in New York to Guantanamo. Her organization represents about 200 detainees. Can you state that you know categorically that men have been mistreated here at Guantanamo?
Absolutely. And I can say that not simply based on client interviews and discussions with my clients about their interrogations or the conditions of confinement over the years at Guantanamo. There have also been things like an interrogation log that outlines very clearly the aggressive interrogation tactics used, particularly against one prisoner, that were authorized all the way up the chain of command to Secretary Rumsfeld.
Gutierrez would know. She meets regularly at Camp Echo with that prisoner, Mohammed al-Qahtani, who the people at Guantanamo believe was the so-called 20th hijacker. Al-Qahtani was allegedly interrogated for 50 straight days.
During those 50 days, the log is a detailed outline of his sleep deprivation, of the physical methods that were used against him.
The logs were leaked to Time magazine. An excerpt. 20 December 2002. Began teaching the detainee lessons such as stay, come, and bark to elevate his social status up to that of a dog.
For all of the things that have happened over the past 4.5 years, I think that the most difficult for me to justify as an American, the most difficult thing for me to defend internationally has been to simply pick people up and put them in prison without following any of our existing laws.
Guida, you know that if there's another major terrorist attack, this kind of a conversation is going to seem totally academic. You understand. Public opinion, which has now sort of come over a little bit more on the side of let's protect our freedom, that's the fruit of 5 years of security.
If we have another act of terrorism, another domestic act of terrorism in the United States, I would hope that we turn to our existing laws and put those processes in place. When we don't, when we act out of fear rather than turning to the rule of law, we wind up with things like the internment of Japanese Americans that was unjustified and a stain on our country.
August 4th, 2001, Mohamed al-Qahtani, a Saudi citizen, is stopped at the Orlando, Florida airport and denied entry to the United States. Jose Melendez-Perez, the customs official who stops him, later says he was suspicious of al-Qahtani because he had arrived with no return ticket, no hotel reservations, spoke little English, behaved menacingly, and offered conflicting information on the purpose of his travel. At one point, al-Qahtani said that someone was waiting for him elsewhere at the airport. After 9/11, surveillance cameras show that Mohamed Atta was at the Orlando airport that day. 9/11 Commissioner Richard Benvenisti says, "It is extremely possible and perhaps probable that al-Qahtani was to be the 20th hijacker." Al-Qahtani boards a return flight to Saudi Arabia. On December 13, 2001, Qahtani was captured during the Battle of Tora Bora. He was shipped by the Americans with other detainees in June 2002 to Guantanamo Bay detention camp, set up 5 months prior at the United States Naval Base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He continued giving a false name and insisted he had been in the area solely to pursue an interest in falconry. After 10 months, U.S. Border and Immigration authorities took a fingerprint sample and discovered that he was the same person who had tried to enter the United States just before the September 11th attacks in August. Seizing the airport CCTV surveillance recordings, the FBI claimed they were able to identify the car of Mohamed Atta at the airport, believed to be there to pick up Qahtani. Another military account stated that al-Qahtani was identified as someone who had previously been turned away due to visa problems by fingerprints taken in Southwest Asia. At the time, the military invited FBI interrogators to interview al-Qahtani. By the fall of 2002, they were frustrated by his resistance. Department of Defense interrogators talked of using different techniques based on a class they attended. Shortly after September 26, 2002, top administration and political appointees David Addington, the Vice President's Chief of Staff Alberto Gonzales, then White House counsel, John A. Rizzo of the CIA, William Haynes, the General Counsel of the Department of Defense, and his legal assistant, Jack Goldsmith, flew to Camp Delta to view al-Qahtani and talk with his interrogators. They were trying to develop ways to break down detainee resistance and had come up with a list of potential techniques to be used. Lieutenant Colonel Diane Beaver, the top legal advisor at Guantanamo, suggested to her command and defense that acting with pure intent was important, that they might seek immunity from command authorities prior to using such harsh interrogation techniques. In August of 2002, the Office of Legal Counsel, Department of Justice, had provided legal opinions. Later, they were called the torture memos, to the CIA that narrowly defined torture and authorized the use of enhanced interrogation techniques since commonly defined as torture. The political appointees went to South Carolina to view Jose Padilla, who was an al-Qaeda associate and a criminal convicted for suspicion of plotting a radiological bomb attack. However, these men were United States citizens. Like the foreign detainees in Guantanamo, they were held in solitary confinement where most human contact was with their interrogators, according to a theory about how to develop dependence among prisoners for long-term gathering of intelligence by interrogators. At this time, none of the detainees, including the American citizens, had access to counsel or federal courts. Al-Qahtani had initially been interrogated by FBI agents who used standard techniques based in police work. On December 2nd, 2002, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld authorized in writing the use of 17 enhanced interrogation techniques to be used against al-Qahtani. After details of Qahtani's status were leaked in 2004, the U.S. Department of Defense issued a press release stating that al-Qahtani had admitted the following: that he had been sent to the United States by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, that he had met Osama bin Laden on several occasions, that he had terrorist training at 2 al-Qaeda camps, and that he had been in contact with many senior al-Qaeda leaders. Al-Qahtani is also said to have informed interrogators that he had received operational training in covert communications from Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, whom he identified as a courier for Osama bin Laden. This was an early lead at a time when the hunt for bin Laden by other means had grounded to a halt. But, as the national security expert Peter Bergen had noted, it had to be combined with another 8 years of work, relying on a wide variety of techniques of intelligence gathering to accumulate in the U.S. government's 2011 raid on the bin Laden compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, and the killing of the al-Qaeda leader. During his stay at Guantanamo, Mohamed al-Qahtani was subjected to a regime of 17 aggressive interrogation techniques, first known as the First Special Interrogation Plan, authorized by Rumsfeld. The special interrogation plan and techniques were not revealed until 2008 in testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee during its investigation of detainee treatment and were reported by the FBI Inspector General Glenn Fine. The authorized techniques were related to those described in the 3 August 2002 legal opinions, later known as the torture memos, drafted by John Yoo, signed by J.S. Bybee of the Office of Legal Counsel, issued to the CIA. Al-Qahtani suffered the following: beatings, forced to submit to an enema, placed in stressed positions for long periods of time, threats made against family, forced nudity, placed in tight restraints for many months, lowering the temperature in the room and then throwing water on the detainee's face, deprivation of sleep for days on end, loud music and white noise played to prevent the detainee from sleeping, forced the detainee to pray to bin Laden, strip searches, forced body searches, threatening to desecrate the Quran in front of him, photos of 9/11 victims taped to his body. On March 3rd, 2006, Al-Qahtani's lawyer, Gitangel Gutierrez, said that her client had recanted the accusations he had made against fellow detainees during earlier periods of interrogation under torture. He had told his lawyer that he was forced to falsely confess and name names in order to get his enhanced interrogation to end. He had accused 30 other detainees of being former bodyguards of Osama bin Laden. In the fall of 2006, Congress quickly passed and the president signed the Military Commissions Act of 2006. It responded to the court's concerns, but mandated the restriction of detainees to the military commission system. According to his lawyer, in April of 2008, Al-Qahtani tried to kill himself after learning that he had faced charges that could carry the death penalty. On May 11, 2008, the government charges against Al-Qahtani were dropped. Commander Jeffrey Gordon, a Pentagon spokesman, told reporters that it was possible for the charges to be reinstated. On November 18, 2008, Chief Prosecutor Lawrence Morris announced that he was filing new charges against Qahtani. When announcing the new charges, Morris stated that the new charges were based on independent and reliable evidence. He also stated that his conduct is significant enough that he falls into the category of people who ought to be held accountable by being brought to trial. On September 2nd, 2014, a judicial panel for the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New York stated that pictures and videos of Al-Qahtani taken while in detention should remain classified. On March 9, 2015, the Supreme Court denied certiorari in his case. But his story didn't end. Mohamed al-Qahtani was released from prison after serving 20 years at Guantanamo. President Joe Biden signed off on the order, saying that Qahtani had suffered years and years of physical and mental abuse, in which the 46-year-old prisoner had suffered from mental illness, including schizophrenia, in which the U.S. dropped plans to try him after a Bush administration legal official concluded that he had definitely been tortured at Guantanamo. Even if he had been telling the truth, nothing of what he said can be used against him in a court. Maybe this is the reason why the United States has not tried to bring Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Ramzi bin al-Shibh, Ammar al-Baluchi, Mustafa al-Hassawi, for the charges of the September 11th, 2001 attacks, because even if they were telling the truth, because the CIA had tortured them, nothing in which they confessed to can be used against them in the court.